Welcome to Mid-Century Living, your weekly nostalgia podcast about the best of technology and culture from the mid-20th century.
Welcome to a new season of Mid-Century Living, the show where we talk all about the best of the mid-20th century and how to add vintage vibes to your modern life. We are your hosts, Gonzalo
and Jackie. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to our first official episode of Season 2 and the first episode of 2024.
Woo! Can you believe we're at a second season?
Kinda. Mostly, yeah, it flew by for sure, but it feels like Season 2. We took a pretty long break there.
Yes.
So how was your break?
Good. I didn't do much, really. I worked during my break.
Oh.
Yeah, we still had practice and stuff, but then I got to spend some time with the family, and I didn't know, but my mom made one of my favorite appetizers for Christmas dinner, and it is a mid-century dish, and it is by looks a mid-century dish, by taste and combination of flavors 100% a mid-century dish. But listeners, when I explain this, you're going to be like, what did he eat? Because it is basically a stack of crepes. So like imagine like a cake looking thing, round, and it's a stack of crepes, and in between each crepe is a mixture of mashed potatoes and tuna.
Perfect.
Yes. And then you stack them up until you have a height that you want, and then you cover it all in the same tuna mashed potato mixture. And when you're ready, because you can put it in the fridge to cool down a little bit, when you're ready, you frost it with mayonnaise and you decorate it with shaved carrot and peas and hard-boiled eggs.
Yes.
And then you eat it cold.
I have this new idea for mid-century recipe bingo cards. Because if that recipe checked all the boxes, and whoever had hard-boiled eggs on their bingo card just bingo. Well, I like all of those ingredients. This is how I feel about most mid-century recipes, is that I like all the things that are in it. So I'd give it a shot because I do like all those things. Let's see how they taste together. I don't know. So, but you like this dish? Unironically?
I unironically, like, since long as I can remember, every time that we travel back home, and my grandma would always be like, "Hey, what do you want?" Like 14 months before we were supposed to go, she would be like, "Hey, what do you want to eat?" And I always requested this.
Well, that's exciting.
Yes. How was your break?
It was lovely. I did a lot of driving and eating and generally being relaxed. I did not get a ton of stuff productively done. Well, that's not true. I accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish for Christmas, so I finished my Christmas apron. I made my Christmas dress with the fabric I've been sitting on for 2 years, so that was good. I'm continuing my New Year's resolution of trying to sew from fabric that I already have in my house, because I don't know if any other sewists that are listening to us probably understand that sewing and buying fabric are two totally different hobbies. Like, buying fabric is just as much fun as sewing with it is, and easier to do because you can do that on the internet. So I have a lot more fabric than I have things that I've made from my fabric, so I'm trying to get rid of some of it now. So I did finally make my Christmas dress. I finished that apron, and I kind of redecorated the Christmas tree this year, and I went to Houston to see my family for Christmas. We went out to dinner for New Year's Eve, and now I'm ready to get serious. But I had basically just like a lovely vacation that was like, it started off being productive, and then I was just kind of relaxing
That's nice.
for the last 2 weeks. So I'm ready to...
See, I had the reverse, because the first week of our winter break, for those new listeners, maybe first go back to season 1, meet the hosts. But I'm a teacher, so I had winter break, 2 weeks off. In the first week I was coaching, and then the second week was the week between Christmas and New Year's, which is always a mess because you're like, what day is it? What time is it? Why am I drinking a mimosa at 4 o'clock in the morning? But so I had the reverse. I had a very productive first. No, that's what you said. Very first productive, and then the second week was like
And then yep.
nothing happens.
Just kind of floating and getting ready to be productive again for an entire other year.
That is true. And part of my productiveness, apart from coaching, was remodeling my bathroom, which was
Yeah,
fun.
you did that, and
Yeah.
it looks great.
I love it. I had to admit defeat at the 11th hour because I was tired, and it was also 11 o'clock at night. And I could not get the plumbing to work, and I was like pissed off, upset. My parents were over because my dad was trying to help me, and he goes, "We can just call a plumber." And I go, "No, I want to do it." And then we called the plumber.
Well, at least you gave it a shot.
Yeah, but it was time, and now I've got a new bathroom.
Yay! And it looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's a new year. Also, did you make any 2024 New Year's resolutions?
Yes, I did, and it's to be more of an adult.
Perfect.
Like literally that's it. Like, and what that means is like I hate like folding laundry, so like I always do the laundry and then I put it in the clean hamper, and then like I take it to my bedroom and I'm like, I'll just fold it later, and then it's Saturday the next weekend, and I've been picking clothes, so by Friday I'm wearing wrinkly clothes. So that's what I mean. I'm like, I'm gonna fold my laundry when I get it out of the dryer. That was what I mean by more adult.
That's adorable.
What about you? Did you come up with anything? Any resolutions?
Well, mostly I'm just sort of so sewing wise. I usually don't really make resolutions. I make goals.
That's smart.
So my goal, sewing wise, this year is to continue sewing all of the fabric I bought and haven't made anything out of yet. So
Yeah.
I actually have a lot of projects planned out using fabric that is already in my house that I'm planning on doing at the beginning of the year. And then I have some other like health related goals that aren't interesting for podcasting. However, what it has led me to is a mini obsession slash buying spree with vintage Weight Watchers recipes. So I'm I'm not seriously considering like actually making them and following it or whatever, but I'm trying to find ways that I can still experiment with mid-century cooking and also keep to my like health and cooking goals. And so that's how I ended up on this like rabbit hole of Weight Watchers recipes. And so I bought this like 1976 Weight Watchers recipe card library on eBay, and it's got just like totally outrageous stuff. Pretty good portions though. Like they recommend
Like a whole chicken?
like half a pound of meat as a dinner serving.
Oh wow! Well, that's 8 ounces. That's significant.
Right? Like I was expecting it to be like tiny and silly, but it's actually
Like
like
I never go above 7,
not
and that's
crazy.
when like I'm not getting any carbs. And then I add a little bit more protein because food.
Yeah, it's just like really interesting because it's like, oh, it start with 2 pounds of meat and it makes 4 dinner portions, which I thought was like really generous. So I was like, I was expecting it to be like that stuff you read on the internet where it's like hard boiled eggs and champagne for 3 days, and that's how you lose quick. Have you heard of that? That's actually a thing.
No, but now I want to try it.
It's a 3-day quick fix diet where you just eat hard boiled eggs and a bottle of white wine. And I think you get like a steak halfway through the day.
Hold up, because I currently in my fridge have 5 dozen eggs, and in my cupboard I've got 5 dozen eggs minus 5 that I've already eaten. But I also have 2 bottles of champagne and at least 1 bottle of white wine. Although
I am going to find it and send it to you. It's some sort of quick fix diet. But I'm pretty sure it's like hard boiled. It's like you can eat eggs any style, but all it is eggs and wine. I feel like you get like 5 ounces of chicken for dinner or something too. Like it's weird.
But problem, I can't drink the wine at school.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say, like, this would have been great 2 weeks ago when you were on winter break, and
Yeah.
like,
Although I have a 3-day weekend coming up.
well, shoot, if you try it, we'll have to do a whole episode on that wacky diet,
Yeah.
and you can tell us all about it. That could be fun. Um, but yeah,
Anyways,
they're actually totally reasonable. So now I'm thinking about that sort of thing. So they have like basically goals, not really resolutions. I feel like the word resolution is kind of the kiss of death, but like calling it a goal feels like a nice optimistic thing you're working towards, you know? So
yes.
that's
No,
how
I
I
like that.
that's
I
how I
like
look at
that.
the new year. Yeah. So now that we're all caught up, we can get to today's topic, which is the electric car, which actually has more details about it having to do with the mid-century than you might think. But since I do not speak car and driver, I'm going to let Gonzalo take the lead on this one. So Gonzalo, take it away.
Awesome. So anyway, yeah, the electric car. A little bit older than what we probably think. It's not like just Teslas. A lot of the history we have today comes from a great article in Car and Driver by Kevin Wilson, and I'll put that link in the show notes. Um, and according to our research, which yes, we do research, um, the technology of the electric vehicle or the EV actually was invented in the 1800s. It became commercially available in the 1890s with the Electrobat, which I'll talk a little bit about, and then we'll go to mid-century. But anyway, the first commercially viable electric car, the Electrobat, which isn't that the best car name ever?
The best one.
Yeah.
It
Uh,
sounds adorable.
it actually came from 1894, and it was very heavy and very slow, as you would expect an electric vehicle that runs on batteries from the 1890s to be. It moved at a top speed of 20 miles per hour for about 25 miles, and then that's it. And the people who came up with it, Pedro Salomon and Henry G. Morris, after developing the Electrobat, they ended up pairing up with a company that was building electric hansom cabs. The hansom cab is the traditional horse and buggy cab where the driver of the cab, the horse person,
The horse person, yeah, checks out.
would he was like high up and behind the passengers. If you've
Oh,
ever read Sherlock Holmes, they always reference the hansom cab. But anyway, following that, sorry, there was also a boom in car technology in the early 1900s. Several notable companies tried EVs or electric vehicles. Ransom Ellie Olds, who you may recognize from Oldsmobile, right? That's where Olds comes from. And then Dr. Ferdinand Porsche, whose son would eventually create the Porsche. And even Thomas Edison and Henry Ford all created EVs between 1900 and 1907.
neat.
Yeah. And we had some like electric car companies at the time, similar to modern day startup companies like the electric vehicle company, which actually had more than 600 electric cabs in New York City and some other cities around the eastern board. But the problem was that they took too long to recharge. So what they did is they created like a pit stop style station in an old arena where a cab with a spent battery could drive in and then have the batteries replaced with a fully charged one and then drive away so they could keep getting customers.
Well, that's smart. Instead of waiting for it to charge, they can charge the batteries outside of the car.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
clever.
but the problem is that by 1907 it went under, and around this time we also saw a boom in car technology, uh, specifically with the internal combustion engine, which we also know as ICE, and then gasoline. Uh, for example, one major moment is the introduction of the Model T by Ford in 1908, but more about Ford in a future episode. Um, so, but anyway, though gasoline would eventually win out this battle between internal combustion engine cars or the regular car and electric vehicles, by the time the mid 20th century came about,
Yay, we're finally in the
yeah,
mid-century.
World War II kind of created a scarcity, which would lead to a small boost in the EV. So Japan had a pretty significant gasoline shortage after the war. So much so that the government encouraged the production of electric vehicles, starting with the Tama Company in 1947, which built electric cars that were good enough for city centers, for taxis, that kind of stuff. Now, Tama Company became Prince, which then became Datsun or Nissan, so still around today.
Neat.
Another company that came out during this time was the Henny Kilowatt. So Henny was a custom coachworks company. They outfitted ambulances, limousines, that kind of stuff for car companies like Packard. And they became part of the National Union Electric Company in the 1950s, which combined an electric company that focused on batteries and a coachworks car builder company. So put a battery maker and a car maker together and you get EVs.
Neat.
Yeah. The first Kilowatt could drive for about 40 miles at a top speed of about 40 miles per hour and used bodies and parts built by Renault, which is a French car maker. And it cost about $3,600, which today does not sound like a lot. But if you compare it to the car that was its inspiration, which was a gasoline powered Renault Dauphine, which cost around $1,600, about $2,000 less, kind of proves that EVs have always been too expensive. um, but anyway, General Motors became part of the electric car boom in the mid-centuries as well. In 1964, they created a prototype vehicle known as the Electrovair.
Another good mid-century sounding car name.
I know, I love all these car names.
Electrovair, Electrobet. Like, these are all really cute. They don't call them stuff like that anymore.
I know. Tesla. Hey, Elon, if you're listening, we got to change the name of your cars. Model S.
I don't even know what his cars are called, but we'll get to that later.
Anyway, that was 1964. And a couple years later, in 1966, Electrovair 2 came out. Another prototype that did not go into production. But this vehicle weighed in at about 3,500 pounds, which if you compare to the Tesla Model S, that's which weighs 4,300 pounds. It's a little bit less. Had a range of about 40 to 80 miles and a top speed of 80 miles per hour. But the biggest problem was that the batteries needed replacing every 4,000 to 8,000 miles. So
Interesting.
not like recharging, like completely like take it to the car shop, get rid of these batteries, buy a new set of batteries and put them in.
Oh, geez. Okay. Interesting.
So it kind of became very expensive, which is I'm assuming is why it was not in production. And then in 1967, GE or General Electric created an experimental EV, which was called the Delta Experiment, which could achieve 55 miles per hour at a range of 40 miles. Ford tried also, but did no better. And the mid-century agreement was that a breakthrough of batteries was needed before the EVs could become a thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So anyway,
I think it's still very cool that they tried.
yeah, definitely. And to be honest, I'm surprised that the mid-century and before electric vehicle was not like a tram, because it's very mid-century to be like, oh, all the houses are going to be connected via these like cables, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you just hook up your car to the cable and drive off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, some city of the future probably had that in their diagrams.
yeah. But the electric vehicle became a huge part of the mid-century, or at least a specific electric vehicle became part of the mid-century because, picture this, May 25th, 1961, President John F. Kennedy has just delivered an address announcing the space program, which, by the way, was delivered in Houston.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So anyway, you work at NASA and are tasked with the moon program and creating a vehicle that would drive to the moon. What do? There's no gas stations up there.
I feel like you are urging me to say you make an electric vehicle.
You make an electric vehicle, yes. So NASA and the Lunar Roving Vehicle, or the Lunar Rover, is what we're talking about. Uh,
Cool.
yeah, it became a very American venture. It was a contract between NASA, Boeing, and the General Motors Delco division. And ultimately, there were 4 LRVs, or lunar roving vehicles, built at a cost of about $38 million, which was almost $20 million more than budgeted.
Yikes.
Yeah, but um, LRV sounds kind of heavy, and it's not very mid-century named, so it had some nicknames. It was called the Moon Buggy, which is
Cute.
a play on the Dune Buggy.
Love it.
Yeah, and this vehicle worked through 4 electric motors, one in each wheel, pushing 1/4 horsepower each, so that the car's total horsepower was 2. And it used non-rechargeable silver zinc potassium hydroxide batteries. And I know I just said a bunch of words that I've got zero idea what they mean. Um,
uh, I follow non-rechargeable and batteries.
but these batteries gave the Moon Buggy a theoretical top speed of 8 miles per hour. And on Earth, it would have weighed 460 pounds. So anyway, the Moon Buggy, the LRV, uh, they were driven 9 times total, 3 times per each mission to the moon. Starting in 1971 with Apollo 15, which was the first time it was used on the moon, where it moved about 17 miles with an average speed of 6. In Apollo 16, it traveled about 16 and a half miles. And in Apollo 17, it traveled 22 miles total, taking the crew 5 miles away from the landing module.
Cool.
Yeah, which I'm sure that was fairly scary.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, but if I was an astronaut on the moon, I am not walking away further than I can see the spaceship.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to space to begin with, so I'm not even going to think about like what I would do. I would stay on the ship, honestly.
um, so the 3 LRVs, because remember 4 were built, the 3 that were driven on the moon still remain on the moon. The 4th one is on display at the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex in Cape Canaveral in Florida. And then, because I'm in Houston and we have NASA here and we're very proud of it, the trainer vehicle is on display at the Space Center Houston in Clear Lake in Texas at the Johnson Space Center, which also has a replica of the Moon Buggy.
Cool.
So that is the Moon Buggy by NASA. But NASA is pretty cool, so maybe we'll have some future episodes about it.
That is a great idea. So that was all very interesting, but how do we get from giving up on electric vehicles in the 60s to the electric vehicles we have today?
So really, the connection between the mid-century and today started with the 1970s and gas prices soaring. With a gas shortage, people still needed to get around, and let's face it, we live in the USA where people do not enjoy walking places. So EVs kind of saw a quick increase in popularity and in like people wanting them until gas prices stabilized again and then interest faded. But the EV really became to a bigger spotlight in the 1990s when regulations on the gas vehicles, the gas cars, renewed interest in the need for an EV. And General Motors introduced the EV1, which was not a pretty car at all.
Yeah.
Basically, it looks like nothing like an EV does today. Um, the front looks those headlamps are very 90s, and I don't know. To me, it looks ugly, but
It does.
that's also just me.
Well, I will definitely post a picture of this and possibly all of the electric vehicles mentioned in this episode in our corresponding Instagram post, so keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. So yeah, after this, Toyota also came out with a very popular, albeit ugly, EV or sort of electric vehicle. I would say the Prius because I watched Top Gear. People would say the Prius because that's probably how it's actually said. But this was a hybrid. And remember, we're not a technical podcast, nor do I actually know how a hybrid works. It's not just a car that you plug in and get all your all your energy from electricity. It's got an internal combustion engine as well. Um, and we really can't talk about EVs in the present world without talking about Tesla and, of course, Elon Musk. Uh, though we can trace the EV back to the mid-century and then also beyond, it has never seen the popularity of today, and that wouldn't be possible without Tesla. So yeah, Teslas became popular thanks to the Model S, which was their flagship model, which was released in 2012. Actually, it was the second model they made. They had a Roadster before. But anyway, 2012, which was already 14 years ago. Can you imagine that?
That was crazy.
Yeah. But regardless, Teslas were immediately popular, continued to create new models throughout the recording of this episode in 2024. It's possible that the popularity came from the Model 3's top speed of 155 miles per hour at the time of release, because it's gotten updates since to increase its top speed. It also had an acceleration time of 5.6 seconds. Or maybe they became popular because it's an EV and you don't need to worry about expenses like gas or oil, and that kind of stuff.
I always heard that what made Teslas particularly interesting when they first came out um, wasn't that they were trying to compete with Prius. Like they weren't trying to be a cooler electric vehicle. They were trying to compete with like Mercedes. Like they were just going for luxury, fast, like a hot car that happened to also be electric. Like that was their shtick.
Yeah, I believe it, because they had a bunch of cool features that just didn't exist in regular uh, gas cars, not even the fancy ones like Mercedes, um, or at least maybe they weren't as refined as in those cars. So, for example, the Teslas had an autonomous driving feature, which is like a self-driving type feature of a car. Yeah.
My favorite Tesla feature is dog mode. Have you heard of that?
No.
You can put your car in dog mode when you have a dog in your car and you need to run into the store, and it keeps the internal temperature at a like constant 75 degrees and displays a message on the screen that says like, "Hello, I'm in dog mode. The dog is totally comfortable in here. Like
Don't break my
we're
windows.
totally yeah, like we're totally fine. The owner is right in the inside and we'll be back shortly, smiley face or something." Like so that you have this like happy dog sitting in the car.
My favorite feature, I have a friend who's got a Tesla amongst other electric vehicles, but his Tesla has a, like, I don't know what to call this, a music mode, but it would play music and at the same time would flash the lights and lower and raise the windows with the music.
Weird.
Yeah, it's a really cool party trick. I don't know when it would be useful, on regular, like, I guess maybe if you're stuck in bumper to bumper like
Yeah,
traffic,
you can have
and
yourself a little party
yeah.
in rush hour traffic.
But regardless of your preference in vehicles, uh, either the gas vehicle or an electric vehicle which plays music to you, it looks like the EVs are here to stay. A technology invented in pre-World War world that has stayed alive through the mid-century and has since evolved to the electric vehicles we see and drive today.
So, would you ever buy an electric car?
I don't know. I mean, personally, I don't think I want one. It's not like I like drive like a super amazingly sports car that has like a lot of sound to it, but I do enjoy the noise of a regular gas car. Um, but honestly, it would be a good investment for me because I drive just a few miles to work and then back, and then like the store and the gym and back, and it would make sense. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea. My problem is that what if I want to take a road trip? Like that's where I get it, and I know that there's a solution because people have EVs.
Multiple cars? Oh, yeah, like that's the thing is you're right. Like you would never be able to do a cross-country road trip or anything like that because it you'd have to stop to charge too often.
Yeah,
So to me, I think for now anyway, it seems like if you have an electric car, that's your daily driver, but you would need a backup car to
Yeah,
do anything else.
but I mean, I've got friends who have Teslas and Rivians, which is another electric vehicle company of today's world, and they've gone out from Houston. I know someone who's gone to like Austin and beyond, and they just have to. I feel like it just takes some extra pre-planning because he's got to be like, okay, I know that there's like fast recharging points here and here and here, so I gotta do those stops. But I don't know the convenience of like a 5 minute gas stop, which when I do cross country, like we are going. Like you stop, and while one person gasses the vehicle, the other person or the other people going, use facilities, and then we switch. Like we are an efficient car
Yeah,
traveling
you're
family.
not seeing the country on a mosey, like you're going somewhere.
Oh no, when we travel, because we go cross country as a family, not as often anymore, but we used to. And it's like, okay, we're in the car, we're going, we're not sightseeing, we're driving.
Well, I find them fascinating, and again, it seems to me like it just isn't something that can be the only car you own. Um, right now anyway. I'm not opposed to it. It's just I find them like incredibly cost prohibitive. And I drive to Houston and back a lot, and but I feel like as the technology gets better um and more common and cheaper, uh we're gonna see a lot of people making the switch.
Yeah,
So
I will say one thing, and I've told, I'm pretty sure I've told this to Alex, who listeners you may remember from our Jeep episode. He co-hosted, and he knows more about cars than either of us, or both of us combined, probably. But I want an electric vehicle that has a clutch and a gearbox that you can like shift through gears. And I understand that everybody listening right now is like, well, that's not necessary. And I go, I know it's not necessary, but isn't an electric vehicle basically a giant computer? So like, couldn't you like create a computer program that makes it like possible? Like, sure, maybe I don't need it. I'm doing air quotes, but it's there, and the one or two people in the world who want it can have it.
yeah, maybe it'll be like an add-on package,
Yeah, cater to
like a
me.
moonroof.
uh,
That'll help ease the transition into. I think, though, honestly, I feel like most people buying electric vehicles want it to be like a spaceship on the inside, where you push a button and you just drive, and then you take a nap. Or, like if
I
you're driving a computer, you're driving a computer. Like
yeah, no,
then
I
the
like
people driving the stick shift will be those people collecting antique cars, and that'll be that.
I like doing stuff while I'm driving. I don't want to like push a button and go. Which now that I have an automatic is what I do. So anyway, now that we've caught up to the present, I think it's a perfect place to transition to our etiquette segment. So Jackie, what do we have for us today?
So, today I found us a some etiquette tips on hats for both men and women. These are mostly sourced from a very cute hat etiquette guide that fedoras.com put out, but it's including like etiquette tips from vintage books and blogs, and they just compiled it conveniently for me. So I just figured I'd pick out some of the specifically mid-century ones to discuss today.
Okay.
So we might as well start off with something from the Emily Post Institute because we talk about those etiquette tips a lot. So men tip or lift their hat only to strangers, not to friends, although a man would lift the hat if he encountered his wife. If a man runs into a female acquaintance, he must take his hat off when talking to her, but can put it back on if they start walking.
Oh, so I thought like the tipping of the hat was for everyone, not just strangers.
Apparently, that's just when you're meeting strangers. But actually, if it's a woman, you're supposed to take your hat off completely, and then you just put it back on when you start walking around town, and then you tip your hat just as a greeting. I guess it's like that nod that guys do. You know the nod.
This one?
Yeah.
Listeners, you never saw me, but you know what what I did.
Yeah, they know what you're doing. Another hat removal tip is that men should typically remove their hats upon entering a building or home. Women, however, can leave their hats on indoors because usually women's hats are also bobby pinned to their hairdos.
Yeah. I knew that one because of the rodeo. If I wear my Stetson, I take it off when I walk inside a building.
That is a good point. Hats for women are typically fashion statements and part of the outfit, which is why you're allowed to leave it on indoors.
Oh, cool.
Also, during the national anthem, females can also keep their hats on unless they're wearing men's hats. So, baseball caps, you still remove.
Okay.
Regardless of gender.
Now, does it say if you're supposed to hold it over your heart?
It does not say where to put the hat, just that it must be removed.
Okay.
I'm guessing people are usually holding it in the hand that they're covering their heart with, because both of those are things you're supposed to do for the national anthem, and it makes sense to do it with the same hand. But it does not say in my little chart.
Oh.
But I just thought that was interesting that if you're wearing a men's hat, you have to follow the men's hat rules, which is fair.
Yes.
Oh, I did see there is another tip farther down in here about removing hats for the passing of the flag and funeral processions, outdoor weddings, dedications, and photographs like that. Removed hats must be held in such a way that only the outside and never the lining is visible.
Okay.
I guess we could close on some, this isn't really etiquette, this is vocabulary, but to don your hat is to put it on, and to doff your hat is to take it off.
Oh, that's cool. I knew
I
don.
didn't know there was a word for taking it off.
Yeah.
I knew don, but I didn't know doff.
Yeah, me too. I knew don, but I didn't know doff your hats. Maybe I don't have to say it often, but maybe next time I have to say, hey guys, take off your hats. When do I say this? I'll say, gentlemen, doff your hats.
So I guess it sort of answers the question, but how do you feel about all these etiquette rules?
So I would love to live in a society where I have to wear a hat. I wear baseball caps all the time, but I mean like an actual hat. Like I would love to like walk into my classroom and have to like take my coat off and hang it on the coat rack and then put a hat on the coat rack. I mean, I don't have a coat rack, but I would. Do
you have a coat rack?
I don't, but I would if I needed to.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing stopping you. You could be that guy.
And then what am I going to put in it? I don't have a hat or a coat.
No, get a hat and a coat and a coat rack and just be that person. Nothing stopping you.
I'll ask my students what they think.
Well, I was going to say, like, wait until next year, like, in the summer, then you can become hat guy. And then, like, 'cause now if you did it after winter break, they'll be like, why did you become hat guy over Christmas? But, like, at the beginning of the new school year, I feel like it would be, like, you got all new students, and you just are hat guy now.
Okay. but I do like it. I would agree that we should keep this as an etiquette.
I love that most of the etiquette has not changed since the 50s and 60s and times where people had to wear hats.
Yeah.
That if you do choose to wear them today, you still follow the same rules. So I think since they lasted the test of time for a reason, so I agree. Let's keep hatiquette. I'm going to keep saying that. I really like little acronym nicknames like that, like Zoodle and for zucchini noodles and stuff like that. So I'm just going to keep saying hatiquette.
Listeners, you heard it first. Here is the first time that the etiquette seal of approval is actually the hetiquette seal of approval.
Yes.
So, Jackie, it looks like we've landed the plane.
Yes.
Listeners, thank you all for listening today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the show and tell a friend.
You can also follow us on Instagram at MCL Podcast. This is the best way to send us feedback and episode suggestions. You can send us a DM anytime.
Yep. And thanks, guys, for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Mid-Century Living. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at MCL Podcast. See you next Friday.